Now we understand how BKC and the technology help us to get a longer lasting protection. I would like to show you now a non-regulated product, and this is the HydroSal Natural Antiseptic. Natural materials, natural botanical extract, have been used for many, many years as antiseptics, and even today you can see here a couple of products. Listerine, for example, is based on natural extract, but Listerine is also based on a lot of alcohol. And we don't like to use alcohol on the skin. I explain you why. So we encapsulate the botanical extract in order to, first of all, decrease the characteristic odor. Some people really don't like the odor. Increase the compatibility. If you use botanical, it's oils. If you use oils, then you may have to use some surfactant. And in general, we want to protect the skin and reduce the exposure to surfactant. Surfactant, like alcohol, they are drying the skin. We're looking for a longevity of protection, extended protection. And of course, the release on demand, which is a very good feature. It will release when you need the protection the most. And of course, everything has to be skin friendly. We want to nurture the skin. We want to provide the elements that the skin can function as it should be. Okay, and the skin has tremendous ability to provide us protection. We just have to prevent other materials to reduce these capabilities. So this is about why we encapsulated. But there is a much larger reason. And this is maybe a little bit of philosophical and may not be relevant to that time today that we are exposed to a killing virus. But bacteria, for example, are sensitive to chemicals. In other words, bacteria can develop resistance to chemical. So if we use a single molecule against bacteria, or even a group of molecules that are somehow similar, the bacteria can develop resistance, which means over time, our ability to protect ourselves with these ingredients will be reduced, because bacteria will find a way to overcome the resistance, to develop the resistance and overcome the bacteria. So our concept is that if we use a botanical with multiple ingredients, it will be much more difficult to develop resistance. So for long-term protection, this botanical blend would be more beneficial. And this is our natural antiseptic. In short, we call it natural antiseptic, NAS. And it's a proprietary blend. It works in synergy. And what do we know about this? It has the ability to inhibit a broad spectrum of microorganisms, and I'll show you the data. You see that I'm using the word inhibit and not kill. Inhibit means we prevent the bacteria from spreading, but the bacteria will be there, okay? So this is the uniqueness of using this blend. It's not a killing blend. And it can be used also as a natural preservative for multiple cosmetic products, and has very low toxicity for human. Here is what the blend contains. So you see we have about 9 different botanical extracts, and the botanical extract contain different ingredients. You see the ingredients are listed, the type of chemicals here in this column. I'm not going to repeat it. You can look at this and get the idea. All these ingredients are typical to the botanical extract. They're known to provide antiseptic properties, and that's why we use these botanicals, because they have a high concentration of these ingredients. Now, so once you understand what it is, it's a blend of botanicals. Do they work? So this is the next question. Do they work? What is the minimum concentration you need to inhibit? This is called the MIC, the minimum inhibition concentration. So here is the test that we did with 8 different types of bacteria. See, gram positive, gram negative, and even yeast and mold. And these are typical bacteria that are contaminating our body or our food and so on. And we measure the minimum concentration need to inhibit the growth. You see NAS, natural antiseptic. The units are microliter per ml of sample per agar, okay? And compare this to phenoxyethanol, the common preservative, phenylethyl alcohol, another one, and of course the paraben, which we don't use, but it's a good reference because for many years people used it. What do we see? Number one, you see along this line, if you go along this line, the minimum to protect us or to inhibit, it's about 2%. Here we're 4.5 and 0.5%. The minimum inhibition concentration is 0.45. This is much lower than phenoxyethanol, less than half, phenylethyl alcohol, 0.6, and of course, paraben 2.16. So what you learn from this, the bottom line, the MIC for this blend is 0.45, and it's much more effective than phenoxyethanol, and probably it's also safer to the skin and to the environment. Although it has some odor, but this is the typical feature of the blend. It's proven to be well-balanced, synergistic combination of botanical extract. It's fully complying with the 7th Amendment of the EPA for processing of potent antimicrobial activity. So it successfully inhibits at MIC of 0.45, which is much lower than other preservatives that we are familiar with. So this is the blend by itself. Now the question that you may ask, so why do I need the technology? So now we talk about HydroSal natural antiseptic, NAS. It's a technology to prolong the antimicrobial activity. How do we know it's prolonging? So here is a test. This is a tissue culture test on agar. We plated it and we tested it 48 hours after we applied the HydroSal natural antiseptic compared to the natural antiseptic by itself, and we expose it to water. So what you see here, this is the amount of colonies we see with a free natural antiseptic 48 hours after applying the NAS. This case is only the free, this is the control. When we use HydroSal, that's what we got, 0 colonies or maybe 1 colony. So HydroSal is able to provide us an extended release. Furthermore, we tested the concentration of the blend on the skin by analytical tools. In other words, we asked the question, how much of these materials will stay on the skin? I'm not talking about whether they'll be effective. That we'll test later. But already I showed you that it works. Now I'm showing you how much is staying on the skin in terms of molecules. So here is the data that we found. This is the amount retained on the skin at time 0, which is a short time after application, and after 8 hours on the hands. So what do we see? We see that when we use HydroSal, we got 100%, compared to the free, we got only 60%. In other words, within a few minutes, we lost about 40% of the total ingredients as they applied on the skin. After 8 hours, the HydroSal again retained much more of the ingredients, about 60%, while the free was barely 20%. So HydroSal is able to retain more of the ingredients for longer. This is the bottom line. Does it work? So here is a test that we use as zone of inhibition. Remember, I explained you what is zone of inhibition. Is the diameter around the circle dipped into the liquid. So what do we see here? We measured here free natural antiseptic compared to the HydroSal. And what you see at 0 time or short time after 0, this is not time, this is the concentration. So when we put 0, nothing, we don't have a zero, we don't have any zone of inhibition. There's no protection, okay? So it's 0. Now, if we use zero 0.5 microliter per ml, which is a very small concentration, what do we see? When we use the free, it's not even appearing here. The free is 0. There is no inhibition at that concentration. However, when we use HydroSal natural antiseptic, we get over 8 millimeter of protection. Now, when we multiply the concentration by 10, that's really high, then we see that both HydroSal and the control are giving almost the same protection. So yes, at a high concentration, the natural blends will give you protection. But with the technology, you can use much less and you get very good protection. And here you see the plates, and you see that it was done in triplicates. You see exactly what I mean by zone of inhibition. This is the clear area around the circle soaked with the HydroSal or with the natural antiseptic. So what do we get here? We learned that HydroSal is able to provide you with a longer lasting benefit. Recently, we compared HydroSal BKC to HydroSal natural antiseptic, and we compared with Hydrogena. We compared again the number of units over time up to 480 minutes. So if times 0, we get 100% kill rate. And you see over time, this is normalized to 100%. Over time, you can see that the HydroSal is giving you a much better kill rate over time, especially at 480 minutes. The NAS is lower than BKC. So bottom line, BKC is probably the best in terms of killing for a time of crisis, but for long term, for protection, the natural antiseptic has an ability to protect us from bacteria. Of course, it's not as effective, but this is the data, and I'm happy to share it with you to protect the skin.